You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. Welcome to episode 87 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. March is Pregnancy After Loss Awareness Month. This month, we are discussing pregnancy after loss, but also loss of jobs, marriages, and family members and close friends as you grieve the loss of your angel. In today's episode, we have Paige Johnson, who shares her stillbirth of baby girl Kody McKenna while battling panic attacks and depression. Paige is a mompreneur, wife, and a rainbow mom who married her high school sweetheart after college. She lost everything after losing her baby Kody, including her business, her grandmother, her brother-in-law, and her husband lost his job. In this episode, she takes us back on that journey of having her firstborn while in college, losing Kody while grieving the loss of loved ones, losing jobs and businesses, and finally having her rainbow baby. Here is Paige Johnson. Thank you, Paige, being on the podcast.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I'd like to begin the interview with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, sure. So I am a business woman / entrepreneur / mom and wife. I started my journey in healthcare in undergrad and college, and I've been with my significant other since we were 17 years old. So a lot of my journey is his journey too. So that's been pretty big for me as far as getting through what I've been through, not just in my career and in motherhood, but just in life. So yeah, very thankful for my husband. And so I'm the CEO and owner of an e-commerce wedding gift shop. And I've been running that for about 2 years now. It's helping to pay some bills, and it's getting ready to grow significantly. I've been putting a lot of back work into it, and I've just recently got a partner to help me grow it. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm also the co-founder for a startup in baby apparel, where we have some patented products that we are bringing to market. So 2019 is going to be a very big year for me. So yeah, I have a lot going on.
Awesome. Well, take us back on your journey to motherhood and just share with us your journey and your loss story.
Sure. So like I said, I met my husband when we were 17 years old. So we were going into our senior year of high school. And then together we went on to college in North Carolina. We went to separate schools, but we did our freshman year in North Carolina. And then we came home to finish out college at home just for expenses and save money and be back around our family. And so senior year, we got pregnant with our now 6-year-old son, who's his junior. And that was when motherhood began. So we had our 6-year-old, and I had just finished undergrad. And not even 2-3 months later, I was in grad school for health systems management, which started my career in healthcare. And so moving along, we got married actually 2 years after we had our son. And it was that year where I started my journey into entrepreneurship. And I started a boutique, a wedding dress, a bridesmaid's dress, an event dresses boutique where the dresses are custom made. And I had a seamstress who was my manufacturer, and that grew pretty quickly. Just the concepts alone of having custom made dresses that were like as expensive as dresses at Macy's, it picked up a lot of steam really quickly. And I think that's when I realized, hey, I can definitely do entrepreneurship and motherhood and a career and a marriage all together. And so that was in 2014, and I picked up a lot of business. I was meeting with clients after work on the weekends and still doing motherhood. I had started a firm in 2015, and I won't say the name of the firm, but it's one of the big fours, and it was a consulting firm. And it was very cutthroat and very demanding, not mother friendly. It wasn't really friendly. I would say it wasn't really friendly for African Americans or African American women. So there was a lot of pressure there. And that is when I experienced my first panic attack. And so I started having panic attacks. I fell into a deep depression. I was suicidal. And it was really crazy because my life was going really well. And I just bought like a brand new Mercedes, and I was getting paid a lot of money. My store was doing good. And I was like suicidal. And it was really weird, and it freaked me out. So I went to get help, and my doctors gave me some medication immediately, and they gave me like the highest dosage. They didn't want to take any chances. And so they helped me. It helped me with my panic attacks, helped me with my anxiety. And the only thing to do left was to change my situation. So I left that firm and I entered into the government, where I did consulting for the government. So I'll just stop right here and say that change, just my work environment alone, changed my life completely. I decided that corporate was not really for me. Government was a lot different than the private sector. It's not as demanding. And the people are really, low key. Everyone just wants to come in, do their job, and go back home to their families and live their life. So that really changed a lot for me. It helped me to really grow my side on the entrepreneurship side of life. And I got to really focus on the things that I love to do, because I wasn't putting in 80 hours a week and just dealing with really, cutthroat management and colleagues. So in between that switch and that transition of private sector consulting to government consulting, I was pregnant with my little girl, Kody McKenna, and we were vacationing in Miami. We had just found out we were pregnant. So I was already 12 weeks, 13 weeks. And I woke up that night just bleeding a lot. And so we were sure we lost the baby. And I think it was something we were preparing our mind for when we were on our way to the ER. And then we got to the ER to find out Kody was actually still breathing, her heart was still beating, and that there was really nothing wrong with her. It was a healthy pregnancy, technically. I just had a hemorrhage, which was, to them, it happened to a lot of pregnancies, and it was pretty normal. But they wanted me to be very careful that I wasn't experiencing a placental abruption because of the amount of blood that I had during the hemorrhaging. So because I was on vacation and out of town, they sent me back home with some papers saying that I was experiencing a possible placental abruption. And of course, I Googled it and became completely freaked out. When we took it back to our doctors, they said that it wasn't a placental abruption. It was a different kind of hemorrhage that happens to about 1/3 of pregnancies. And eventually the bleeding would stop. So I kind of, I chilled out. We didn't really think about it that much. We really did trust our doctors, and we trusted their expertise. So what I did do was I stopped taking my medication for anxiety and depression. I just thought it wasn't worth it, and that it was just too risky because no one could really explain what was going on. And I had already received 2 answers from 2 different doctors, and they were exactly the opposite. So I decided to just cut out the medication and just live a very healthy pregnancy, which we did. So eventually the bleeding did stop. I, was in and out of the OB office. There were no problems. And then we get to 37 weeks and I wake up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning with water gushing out of me. And I'm, excited. And I'm telling my husband, it's time. We already had our bag packed. This was exactly 1 week after our baby shower. So the nursery was ready. Everyone was already on call. The baby was due any day at that point. Even at 37 weeks, her head was like so close and my cervix was already dilated to the point where we were expecting her any day. So I wake my husband up and tell him it's time, I immediately pass out. Once I pass out, everything becomes a little blurry, and I tell him to call the police. I wake up a little bit and I tell him, call the police. Something's definitely wrong. Like, I don't even feel her. I don't feel contractions or anything like that. So he calls the ambulance. He removes our 6-year-old out of our bed. Oh, at that time, our 6-year-old was actually, I'm going to say 3 or 4. So he moves him out of our bed and back into his bedroom. And next thing you know, the ambulance pulls up and arrives, and the EMTs rush into my bedroom, and they are prepared to deliver a baby. So they're putting like blankets down, and they're pulling out spools and stuff, and they're checking me. And from what I remember, they're just like talking about how much blood I'm losing. And I pass out again, and I go unconscious. And then I think I wake up again when they're getting ready to load me into the ambulance. And as they load me into the ambulance, I remember like looking up at the sky, and it was like the moon was still there. It was the stars. It was definitely very, very early in the morning. And I start to lose my hearing. And I remember telling the EMT, don't let me close my eyes because I think I'm dying. At this point, I couldn't feel anything. I started to lose my hearing, and my eyes, everything was just going blurry. And I guess I did close my eyes again. I went unconscious again. And then I wake up again, being rushed into the ER. Once we get to the ER, I guess I was losing so much blood. I don't know. I guess I was dying because I just couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't feel anything. I did not feel her. And so when I woke up again, I kind of freaked out. I was like, I don't feel her. She's not kicking. And they were like, yeah, she's gone. And apparently they had called 2 doctors in there to verify it, and they just couldn't find a heartbeat. So then after that, I'm sedated. I'm heavily sedated. They're pumping blood into me. I get about 4 to 6 bags of blood, and then I'm out again. I don't wake up again until I'm pushing. And so they did not decide to do an emergency C-section. They wanted to stabilize me first. And once they were able to stabilize me, they just went ahead and gave me Pitocin to push her out. And so I did. And I would say up until that moment, I was still very hopeful. I was confused about what was going on, but I was hopeful that everything was just a mistake, and she would come out crying and screaming, and there would be an explanation for why this was such a big mix-up. But it wasn't, and she came out silent and still. And I think from when that happened, our moms were crying. Everyone was just crying, and everything kind of got blurry again after that. It was just a lot of crying. And as the hours went by, people visited, and I was just kept really busy. And for the next, I would say, couple of days, I wasn't left alone, and everything was very, very busy. And I would say that the hardest part was leaving the hospital in a wheelchair with flowers and with no baby. And that's probably the only negative feeling, overarching feeling of that entire experience, was to leave a hospital without a baby. Knowing how it feels to leave a hospital with a baby, it was really hard to leave without one. And I started crying hysterically in the lobby, and everyone was looking at me, and it was just a mess. Then we get home, and then everything is just triggering after that. The bed was like soaked with blood. There was just blood everywhere. It looked like a bad murder scene. And my husband and some of our friends had to take our king bed out of the house. And that was really triggering for me. So it was more crying. And then we had to take our baby girl. Well, we had to go see our baby girl at the funeral home that our family actually owned. And I actually decided not to take that trip. And my husband did. And he just brought back pictures of her kind of laying there on ice. And it was very different from the other pictures that we took of her where she had clothes on. So that was really hard for me to see. And I know it would have been harder for me to experience. And then we decided to have her cremated. We were just so disappointed, and things were just so cloudy, and life was very busy for us. So we couldn't make a decision to do a funeral or to cremate her and put her in a cemetery, in a baby cemetery. We didn't even want to think that far in life. So we did have her cremated, but we kind of held on to her. And And she's in my office, and I have like a little place for her and her stuff. And I get to enjoy seeing her every day, really. So that is the disappointment and loss part of that story.
Well, I have a question about hemorrhaging that you had. So did they ended up saying that you had some type of abruption, or it was just excess hemorrhaging? Did they give you some type of explanation on why you were leaving?
Sure. Okay. So the first time we discussed the hemorrhaging with our obstetrician, they said it was called a subchorionic hemorrhage, which actually is common in a lot of pregnancies. It's that bleeding that people experience, that women experience in their first trimester, and it does pass over. So there are a lot of women who experience that. However, that by the end of it all, they did do a detailed analysis of my placenta, and they called it a spontaneous placental abruption, which means it abrupted. They don't know why. And it happens to 1% of pregnant women. And so they said they couldn't really understand it. So they call it, the medical term is spontaneous. The issue we were having with that is that at 13 weeks, there was a physician who told us that we could possibly have a placental abruption. So to us, it felt like we should have expected it and it should have been caught, because like, how could it be spontaneous if someone had already looked at a scan and told us that it was possible? Those two are like oxymorons, right? So we did have some attorneys look at the case and some specialists, and they just said that there was really nothing that anyone could do. It wasn't like medical neglect or anything like that. And we were just looking for answers. I mean, we just wanted an answer. And I think another hard part about the loss was understanding that sometimes you're not going to get answers for the bad things that happen in life. And you're never going to get an answer for why you lost your baby. Even if like a cord was wrapped around the baby's neck, like you're still going to ask why, and you're still going to want more answers. Like, why did no one catch this? Or why didn't we do something earlier? There will always be a why. And you have to kind of get past that part. Once you can get past that, I think that's when you can start your journey to healing. So I hope I was able to answer your question.
Absolutely. And the reason why I'm asked is because I also experienced a placenta abruption. My abruption was so bad that I ended up having to have a hysterectomy. So I also went back and looked at my prior records and ultrasounds, and around my 13 and 14 week mark, whenever I had an ultrasound, it did say that there was some hemorrhaging, some excess hemorrhaging, and the doctor wrote it off as, okay, it was just, your first time, kind of similar to what you just said, but your first trimester hemorrhaging or what have you. But I hadn't experienced that in my prior pregnancy. So I was curious. And that's the reason why I asked. I was curious. And for the audience, just to understand exactly how deadly placenta abruption is. And, for me, my curiosity to help just educate and help tell people so that they know that, the extreme cases that are out there, but what other things that we could do or look for, signs that we could look for to just make sure that we're asking those questions throughout our pregnancies specifically. Exactly. But I just wanted to share that part of my story because it's very similar. So join me and my sisters-in-laws in the DMV on Saturday, April 13th, 2019 at 11 a.m. at Busboys and Poets Tacoma at our annual Sisters-in-Laws brunch. While dining on traditional brunch classics and mimosas, our sisters will enjoy a powerful keynote speaker, a live podcast panel discussion featuring 3 local organizational founders, where we'll be discussing the topics of maternal and infant mortality outcomes for Black women and supporting Black women through miscarriage, pregnancy loss, and infertility. There will be fellowship, swag bags, and so much more. To secure your ticket, go to sistersinlawsbrunch.com. Once again, that is sistersinlawsbrunch.com. I cannot wait to see all my sisters in the DMV on Saturday, April 13th. So talk us your healing journey. Take us on back. You know, you all had your daughter cremated. How did your family heal? And then really, how did you, as a mom already, how did you tell your son, who was 3 or 4, he may not have already comprehended that, really what happened to his baby sister?
Right. So that's a 2-part question for sure, because our son, our oldest son, he can reopen some wounds. I mean, the questions are deep. At that point, he was 4. He was already in school. So he already had his classmates that, you know, his sister was on the way and he was a big brother. So when it became a reality to him that his sister wasn't coming home, and just for the audience to know, we decided not to have him in the hospital room at all. He never even left the house that whole weekend that it happened, because he's an emotional kid. So he would have just been crying the whole time. And we just didn't know how to handle both at the same time, like our daughter and our son. So he actually didn't experience any of that, which is even crazier, because when we got home, he cried a lot. He asked, you know, where was she? We always told him that she's in heaven now and she's with God. And slowly but surely, he definitely started to understand what that meant. And we are a church-going family. He knows who Jesus Christ is. He knows who we serve. It slowly but surely, he started to connect the two and what it would be like to be with God and, you know, where is God? And so we had those discussions with him, and we just kept him busy. We kept him very busy. To be honest, we didn't have to keep him busy for long, because we actually got pregnant literally 3 months later. So we got pregnant December. We lost her in August 28th, and we got pregnant in December. And so we were back on this journey all over again. And so when I talk about healing, it's a little interesting, because it's almost like I didn't take the time to heal. And my physicians were, like, all of them, my private practice physician, my obstetricians and gynecologists, like, all of them were very much against me getting pregnant again, because they felt like, well, for one, I had lost so much blood and had blood transfusions. They wanted my body to build up the platelets again and just build up my strength again to do another pregnancy. And they were worried about my mental. And I totally understood all of that. This will probably be my first time admitting this, but being pregnant again, I have to be very careful the way I say it, because I don't want people, you know, women who have experienced loss during pregnancy to feel like the pressure that they have to be pregnant again. But I will be honest, in my experience, when I say that the pressure was more than I could handle. Like, I almost thought like I would die if I didn't put a baby in my nursery, or I would die if I did not give birth to another child. I can't really explain it. It's like a phenomenon, but I felt like I had a duty to finish off a pregnancy like in a healthy way, which was looking back at it, it was crazy to think like that. I mean, I wasn't rational at all, really, because I had already had a successful pregnancy. I already had a child. But something was like telling me I had to prove to myself that I could do this. And we weren't planning on, you know, having another baby so soon, but it did. It literally just happened. And next thing you know, we are pregnant with our son, Carter. And he was born exactly a week after we lost our daughter. So exactly a year and a week after we lost our daughter. She had passed on August 28th, 2016. And we had Carter on September 7th, 2017. So it was almost exactly a year. And so that was kind of the way I handled my healing. I gave birth to another child, and I became so immersed in the Word. I can't really explain my transition. You know, I've always been a Christian. I always grew up in the church, but it was a different type of transition and trust that I put into the Lord when I had my son, because I almost begged him through it. And I felt like my son was like this blessing that was going to pretty much saved my life, really. You know, I had always struggled with depression. I had always struggled with suicide and anxiety. And then after I had my son, I never, you know, experienced suicidal thoughts. I knew I had a purpose for being here. And I knew that I had to share my daughter's story. And I know, because I've definitely networked with so many women who have lost infants during pregnancy and after pregnancy. And I know that some women just do not want to share their story. It is very personal to them and they just cannot bring themselves to share it. But I felt the exact opposite. I know that I need to share my story. And I know that I need to let women know that there's hope. Like, not even just like this basic, oh, there's hope, you're still here and there's always hope that you'll have more kids and blah, blah, blah. It's like 10 times more than that, what our Creator can do for us in our lives. And if you trust Him, and I think it kind of, ends there, really. I mean, my mom is like a pastor and she's in the ministry, and she just told me every day it was like a new verse, study this. She bought me a Kindle for the first time. I never even thought of having a Kindle. And she told me to download all of these different apps and devotionals. And I just kind of immersed myself in the Word. And I came out of that like an entirely different woman, like an entirely different person, an entirely different wife and mom. And if you look at it 2 years later, I have a 1-year-old now and a 6-year-old, and my businesses have actually taken off, and life just did a 180, right? It just completely went in a different direction than what I had expected. And I think that's because of the strength that I was able to pull from my loss. I tell everyone this, even as an entrepreneur, I have experienced the ultimate loss in my life. And, the loss didn't stop there. And I'm sorry I don't want to go off this path, but the loss actually didn't stop there. I lost my daughter in August. I lost my grandma that December. I lost my husband's best friend and best man from suicide in that January. And then that August, the following August, which was exactly a year after we had lost her, we lost my father-in-law, my husband's dad. And, he was raised by his dad. So this was like, we were getting back-to-back L's, like back-to-back losses. The only way out of all of this suffering to us was like to end it, right? To like end life. And the most drastic thing we could do was to move away from everything. So we did. We moved to Florida. We dropped everything. We moved to Florida. My job allowed me to telework. My companies were online. So I was able to just relocate my life physically. And that was how we were able to rebuild. And so if I do want to talk about healing, I know I say that being pregnant was like this huge healing journey for me. But now that I think about it, moving away was a huge healing journey for me. We were a mile away from the beach, and the beach is my like saving grace. It's like where I can get my peace. And so I was able to have such a peaceful pregnancy, living away from family, away from friends, and just, it was just me and my little clan. And we were able to rebuild our souls and our household and our finances and just our relationship with each other. And so I think that healed us a lot, to the point where we were able to come home and thrive. And that's what we're doing now with our new family. So we're thriving financially with our family, with our boys, and even our families. Everything just feels 10 times better now. I hope that's some words of encouragement.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that to the listeners, she really stressed about just being in the Word, staying in God's Word, because just because you have lost a child does not mean that other loss will come your way, because she is definitely a living witness to being able to heal through the loss of a child and then the loss of so many other people that are around you that were close to you. I know that's going to help someone for sure. So parenting after loss. So, you had a son before your loss, and now you have your rainbow baby. So let's talk.
Yeah, he's so cute.
Let's talk to us about how you have parent differently, or do you parent differently after loss now?
Oh, yeah. I don't take a second for granted. It's crazy. I do not take a second for granted. I will even tell you, I went to extreme lengths. So I'll tell you that I was working remote as a consultant for the government. So, in the DC area, a lot of us here are government contractors. So I was on a government project where I was consulting, and I was working full time, and I was able to kind of like be this like housewife, but not really, because I was still working and running a business. And then one day, randomly, they told me that I had to come in the office and work full time every day. And it bothered me. It just bothered me. I was like, my baby's not even 1 yet. There's no way I'm coming back to the office. And I just felt like it would take away from my first year journey with my child. And back in the day with my 6-year-old, I mean, I was back at work the next month after I had him. There wasn't like this, like I cared about motherhood, but there wasn't like this all out assault on anyone trying to keep me from my baby. I just did what I had to do. But with Carter, he is my rainbow baby and he deserves all my time. I'll even tell you that I'm still breastfeeding him and he's 13 months now. And again, I never thought I hated breastfeeding with my oldest. It didn't even last, I would say 2 months, like last time I had the opportunity to breastfeed. But now I pour my all into my kids now. We do extracurricular activities for our oldest. We just pour every second that we have that's like downtime, we pour into our kids. We don't let a second go by without them knowing how much we love them and care for them and want them to thrive in this world, because we know what it feels like to not have a daughter who can do that. So we pour what we have left into our kids for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So what resources that you use to help you on your healing journey? I know you mentioned that you had Kindle and you downloaded some apps that were recommended by your mom. So what are some of your favorite apps for inspirational and just to heal?
The app is called The Five, and it is a devotional for women. And it's just kind of been, you don't hold any questions back with them. You ask your questions about motherhood, about family, about career, and you can find all of that there. And I wish I had the exact name of the book that they're helping to publish. So there's a book called It's Not Supposed to Be Like This. The author is also someone who has created that app. And I can give you guys the exact name of that book.
Yeah, I see it. Lisa Turkey Kurst.
It's hard to pronounce. So that book comes out, it's on pre-sale. It comes out November 5th, but it's just a snippet of the kind of support I got from that app alone. And you can look up Proverbs 31 Ministries. They have literally carried me through. These women have given me a new way to immerse myself again. Like, I love that word, immersing myself into the word, and how to listen to God and how to renew your faith in after loss and disappointment. So Lisa's book comes out November 5th, I believe, or the week of November 5th. And it's about finding unexpected strength when disappointments leave you shattered. So yes. So I definitely can't wait to read that, but it's just a snippet of the kind of readings that, my mom suggested for me, just about loss. And then when you do start to kind of research loss and disappointment and, what other families have gone through, you start to realize that even at some point, your loss could have been magnitudes larger, right? And I've met women who had given birth to twins, and the twins died on the same day or the day after each other. And then one girl that I went to high school with, her twins died, and then her mom died in the same week, and she was still in the hospital while her mom had passed away. And I think that's when I realized I need to learn more about loss and human suffering, and why God lets us go through this, and what can we do to survive this? How does our faith survive, right? Because we see people we love being taken from us and joy being snatched from us. And how do we continue to trust in the Lord when those things happen to us? And so I spent a lot of time researching just that alone. And I found that in the Bible. I found that in Proverbs 31 Ministries. I found that in the app that they have. And that's the kind of research I continue to do, because the grief and the loss ministry is very huge to me. That's where we lose a lot of a lot of Christians, right? And a lot of believers, we lose them when things like this happen. And so you have to know how to talk to someone through it, talk yourself through it, and also, save other people that are going through that as well.
Awesome. So what encouraging words can you leave with the mom that's out there who is looking to try again and just needs some encouraging words?
Sure. So I would say that I prayed to God to give me another baby and to just make me feel better. And I want to encourage women that's not how things work at all. Another baby will not stop the tears. I was holding my baby today and looking at my baby's ashes and crying. So that doesn't thought like there's this hurt that won't ever go away, but you do learn how to you get the strength to live through it and to continue to thrive as much as possible. And so I would say that what you pray for, God will return tenfold. And so what you expect him to give you, what you ask him for, another baby, or for your marriage to be fixed, or for a career change, anything in life, what you ask of him, he doesn't think as small as we do. He thinks 10 times larger than we do. He's the creator of the entire universe. And I feel like that's how my life turned out. I think I was thinking small, and I was thinking that I just wanted another baby, but I got way more than that. I got not only like the cutest baby in the whole world, like he is just so cute. And he was a blessing. I even travel with him. He's just so good. He does not cry. He's very like a mature baby. It's crazy. People are like, he's been here before, but he's just the perfect baby. I would have never been able to imagine him. And I was blessed with him. And I was blessed with a really great job that's super supportive. And my husband has just gotten saved, and he's getting ready to be baptized at the end of the month. So I feel like I have a new husband. And I feel like my family has gone on this journey with us, and they've learned some things. And I just feel like everything has been renewed and restored. And there's no way I could have imagined this 2 years later. Like, I had a feeling something great would happen, but I didn't know that life would get to the place that it is now, where I'm living my dreams right now. My stores are getting ready to take off. Our real estate is taking off. Like, everything is taking off. And there's no way I would have been able to pray for this 2 years ago when I lost her. So I just want to give everyone encouragement that God does not think us small, and our sufferings will never amount to what Christ has done for us. And we need to continue to study him, study the word, and our strength will be in that word. It is the only armor that will get us through this life, and suffering will not stop, but our strength will get a lot greater, and we'll get a lot stronger. So yeah, that's what I have.
Awesome. So where can we find you on social, and what is your website of your businesses so we can support?
So my social kind of springs off into everything I'm working on right now. On Instagram, you can find me at I am Paige, Paige, Ashley, Ashley. My wedding gift shop is definitely ready and taking off for this gift season, and will definitely be even more ready for the next wedding season. So that is I'll Always Love, which is AISLE, alwayslove.com. And the business that my husband and I took off with after we lost our daughter is growing exponentially, and that is our real estate business as well. And it's provided us some awesome blessings, and we're just really excited for 2019. I would have never been able to tell you guys that we'd be where we're about to be, but that is Kody, Kody, which is the name of our late daughter, Kody Homes. So KODYHOMES.com. And so we do buy and sell property and invest in property. That is our side hustle. We hope to make that our main hustle as of next year. But yes, real estate and e-commerce has been my entrepreneurship ventures for the past 5 to 6 years, and it's really taking off. I mean, I could have never I couldn't have prayed for things like this. So I'm excited to share with women who have lost, take care of yourself, take care of your mental, stay off of medications when you're pregnant, and just find as much peace as you can during your pregnancy. Ask questions. Like, you can't ask enough questions. And if I could go back, I would have asked a million of them. And, always ask questions and be your own spokesperson, your own spokesperson. Speak up for yourself and your family, for sure.
Thank you so much, Paige, for being on the podcast and sharing your story and sharing your light.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I pray that this show was inspirational and a blessing to you. For show notes, visit ericamcafee.com/podcast. Please join us in our offline discussions in our private Facebook group by going to sistersinloss.com. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please rate and subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. I pray that you all have a blessed week. Keep the faith, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday.